The cameras flashed. The courtroom was just completely dead silent. And just like that, Hollywood and the true crime world had a brand new obsession.
Oh, absolutely. It was like watching a movie play out in real time, but, the stakes were actual human lives.
Right. Welcome to Starscope Report. Join us as we uncover the Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and those viral influencer scandals that just take over your feed.
Yeah, from red carpet surprises to the darkest social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
And today's deep dive is, well, it's a heavy one. We're looking at the sentencing hearing of Kouri Richins, the Utah children's book author who was just convicted of murdering her husband, Eric Richins.
With a fentanyl-laced Moscow Mule, yeah. It's just the details are staggering. We're pulling from a huge stack of sources today. We've got courtroom transcripts, victim impact statements, and some really fascinating behavioral analysis of her reactions in court.
Exactly. And our mission for this deep dive is really to unpack that terrifying gap, right? The gap between this carefully curated public persona, the grieving widow writing a book to help her kids, and the actual calculated reality of a convicted murderer.
It really is a masterclass in the masks people wear. I mean, we see influencers curating their lives all the time, but this was a PR spin to cover up a homicide.
Right. And if you're loving how we break down these wild Hollywood and pop culture twists, make sure you're subscribed.
Yeah.
Because we've got even crazier stories ahead. But let's just jump right into it.
Let's do it. Because while the murder itself made all the headlines, the stuff happening inside that house before Eric died is, well, it's what really makes this story unforgettable.
It really is. And the most heartbreaking part of the whole sentencing came from the victims who couldn't even be in the room, Kouri and Eric's 3 sons.
Yeah, they were just 5, 7, and 9 years old at the time of the murder.
Right. And now they're roughly 9, 11, and 13. And their statements, which were read by their therapist to the court, they just completely shatter that whole devoted mommy influencer aesthetic she was trying to sell.
They really do. We usually look at kids as peripheral figures in true crime or celebrity scandals, but here, they were the primary witnesses to this, psychological terrarium she built.
Oh, totally. Like, the oldest boy who prosecutors said actually wears his late father's clothes to school just to feel close to him. He flat out told the judge he is terrified of her.
Yeah, he said, "I miss my dad, but I do not miss how my life used to be."
Right. He literally said, "I don't miss Kouri, I will tell you that." And then the boys just started detailing what life was actually like behind closed doors. And it was targeted cruelty, specifically with the family pets.
Which is such a massive red flag in behavioral psychology.
Exactly. They described how she locked a family cat in the garage, intentionally putting it in a situation where it got fatally mauled.
God, that's so dark.
And it gets worse. She refused to feed their chickens and bunnies and intentionally left a heat lamp off so they would freeze. She even hit their dog over the head as hard as she could just because it peed inside.
It's just so textbook. Because in a family dynamic, abusing a pet isn't just about the animal. It's a systematic way of establishing control.
Like holding their emotions hostage.
Exactly. A pet is basically a proxy for the child's vulnerability. By harming something the kids love, she's essentially demonstrating, I have ultimate power over your safety. It breeds this constant low-grade terror.
Wow. So they learned that the person who is supposed to protect them is actually the biggest threat in the house.
Right. And it makes you completely question the defense's strategy. I mean, how do you reconcile them claiming she's this devoted, loving mother when the middle son recalled waking up, shaking, unable to talk, thinking she had drugged him too?
You literally can't. It's like a heavily filtered Instagram photo versus the raw, unedited reality. The youngest son even said he would only feel safe and able to trust people again if she was locked in prison forever.
That is just, wow. A child using the legal system to beg for a physical barrier from his own mother.
It's chilling. And, the kids saw through the facade, but Eric saw it too. Which brings me to this question that was just eating at me while I was reading the sources.
Why did he stay?
Yes. If he knew she was dangerous, and sources say he even suspected she tried to poison his Valentine's Day sandwich 2 weeks earlier, why not just pack up the kids and run?
It sounds counterintuitive, right? Almost reckless. But you have to look at the testimony from Eric's sister, Katie.
Oh, the victim impact statement she gave.
Yeah. Eric was doing this terrible, agonizing math in his head about the family court system. He had actually consulted a divorce attorney. But he knew that if he filed for divorce, a judge might just grant Kouri 50-50 custody as a starting point.
Oh my God. Meaning those boys would be left totally alone with her for half the week.
Unsupervised. With a woman he had explicitly called the most evil person he had ever met.
That is, I can't even imagine that kind of stress.
Right. So Katie testified that Eric made this conscious decision to be their shield. He told his family he would, quote, live his life through hell every single day until his youngest turned 18, just to make sure he was always there to monitor her.
He literally stayed just to be their bodyguard.
Exactly. He thought staying in that house was the only guaranteed way they'd survive their childhood.
And then she murdered him while those exact same kids were sleeping right down the hall. But what Kouri did after the murder, I mean, this is where it turns from a crime into this, like, villainous, calculated PR campaign.
Oh, the post-murder isolation was incredibly swift. She didn't just take Eric's life. She tried to completely erase his family from the boys' lives.
She used her own kids as bargaining chips. According to the transcripts, she basically told Eric's dad he would never see his grandsons again unless he got Katie, who was the trustee of the estate, to sign all the assets over to her.
Which is just classic financial abuse and manipulation. And when that extortion didn't work, she went after the kids' own resources.
Yeah, she drained the college funds Eric had set up. She redirected their Social Security survivor benefits. She sued Katie 3 separate times.
All while actively gaslighting these traumatized kids. You know, this really highlights the mechanics of parental alienation.
How so? Like, what was she telling them?
Well, she was feeding them this totally fabricated narrative. She told the boys that Katie hated them, that she was trying to steal their money, and that Eric's family wanted them to end up homeless.
Oh, wow. So she's playing the savior while secretly robbing them blind.
Exactly. The goal is total dependency. If you erase a child's support system and convince them the outside world is out to get them, they have no choice but to cling to you.
That makes so much sense. Because when the family finally got to see the boys, like 15 months later, the kids were terrified of their own aunts and uncles. Kouri had completely rewritten their reality.
The sheer audacity of dismantling your kids' lives, draining their futures, and then going on morning television to say you wrote a grief book to help them, it's mind-blowing.
It really is. And later in the episode, we'll talk about the shocking twist nobody saw coming with a text message she sent. But first, wait until you hear how Kouri actually addressed her sons in court.
Oh, the allocution.
Yes, the contradictions will literally give you whiplash. So, the defense asked the judge for 30 minutes so Kouri can speak directly to her children, even though the kids are nowhere near the courtroom.
Right, which is traditionally an allocution is a chance for a defendant to accept responsibility, show some remorse, maybe apologize.
Yeah, well, she did none of that. She stands up there wearing this bright neon t-shirt layered under her jail uniform, and she just totally rejects reality.
It was bizarre.
She starts by claiming she didn't abandon them. She blames the state of Utah and Eric's family for cutting off her communication. And then she just pivots into giving them life advice, like she's hosting a podcast or something.
Right, she tells them marriage is hard and don't keep secrets.
She literally admitted she and Eric fell in love with other people, but then told the kids, our love was enough. Like, sorry, what? How does someone stand in front of a judge convicted of using a lethal dose of fentanyl to kill her husband for financial gain and tell her kids their marriage was a crazy, beautiful mess?
It's because she's trying to blur the lines. Psychologically, she cannot change the guilty verdict, right? So she introduces ambiguity. She told them life isn't black and white, but shades of gray.
Shades of gray. She poisoned his drink.
I know, but it's a manipulation tactic. She's trying to reframe a calculated assassination into this, like, complex, tragic romance where she's just a misunderstood heroine.
It's so delusional. She even told them to never apologize or beg for mercy for something they didn't do. Not a single crack in her facade.
Well, you can only pull that off when your primary cognitive driver is entitlement rather than empathy. And we actually got incredible insight into her mindset from Dr. G, a forensic psychologist who analyzed her nonverbal communication during the verdict.
Yes, the body language analysis. Honestly, what I found most striking wasn't what she did, but the micro-expressions she couldn't hide. Like right before the verdict was read, she's dabbing her nose with a tissue.
Which Dr. G identifies as a prop behavior.
Right, because there were no tears.
Exactly. She's dabbing to signal to the room, hey, look at me, I'm crying. But her facial muscles show zero actual distress. It's a totally performative action designed for the cameras.
Classic influencer tearless apology video vibes.
100%. And then, as the judge speaks, she just locks eyes with him, barely blinks.
It was so creepy.
It's a hyper-vigilant threat response. She recognizes the judge is the one with the power. But the most revealing part, the exact second the word guilty is read.
She just drops her head. Stares straight down at the table.
Right. And a layperson might think, oh, that's grief or shock. But Dr. G explains it's a physical manifestation of profound loss of confidence. Her gamble failed. But she wasn't shocked, and she wasn't sad. She just deflated.
And then came the micro-expression.
The mouth twitch.
Yes. That tiny little smirk/twitch on the side of her mouth.
In behavioral analysis, an asymmetrical twitch like that is the universal sign of contempt. And microexpressions, they bypass conscious control. They leak out. Once her confidence was gone, all that was left was just pure contempt for the people holding her accountable.
And she showed that contempt during the victim impact statements, too. While Katie was up there crying, talking about her trauma, TMZ reported that Kouri was literally rolling her eyes, making faces, and mouthing the word, "What?" to her lawyer.
Which is the most dangerous emotion to show a judge. Contempt implies a superiority complex. She's basically communicating that her victim's pain is beneath her.
Well, if anyone needed proof that she thought she was above the law, you just have to look at the text message prosecutors say she sent from jail to an admirer.
Oh, this text is wild.
Listen to this. She wrote, "I will expose this county, the prosecution, the judge, the Richins. They picked the wrong one. They think sentencing is the end, closure is just the beginning. They haven't seen anything yet." And she ended it, I kid you not, with a winking emoji.
A winking emoji. I mean, that is a textbook example of a narcissistic injury.
What does that mean exactly?
When someone with a highly inflated sense of self suffers a massive public defeat, like being convicted of murder, their brain doesn't process it as a moral failure. They process it as an unjust personal insult.
So she's not sorry, she's just mad she got caught.
Exactly. That text destroys any illusion of the grieving mother. She is entirely focused on revenge, still convinced she's the smartest person in the room.
Which makes the defense's final plea just, well, baffling. Like, how do you stand up in court and ask for mercy when your client is sending threatening texts with winking emojis?
It's a tough job. Her attorneys tried to pivot the judge's attention to her humanity. They argued she was a human being who loved deeply, that she took classes in jail, and that she was, quote, worth saving.
They even claimed the jury got it wrong.
Yeah, they equated a life without parole sentence to putting her in a cage with no hope of rehabilitation.
But the prosecutor, Brad Bloodworth, he completely shut that down.
He had to point out the core flaw. Rehabilitation requires remorse. You cannot fix a mindset that refuses to admit it did anything wrong.
Right. And he reminded the judge of the premeditation. She used 5 times the lethal dose of fentanyl. She was literally on her phone researching luxury prisons for the rich.
While trying to script phony testimony from her cell.
Yeah. Bloodworth said, "A person like Kouri Richins should never again lurk among the rest of us." And Judge Richard Mrazek agreed.
He certainly did. He focused entirely on the future risks she posed.
So he sentenced her to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the aggravated murder. But, and this is the huge part, he added consecutive sentences for the attempted murder, the insurance fraud, and the forgery.
Consecutive meaning they stack on top of each other.
Exactly. She's never legally walking out of that facility.
In a sentence like that, it really reflects the totality of her destruction. She didn't just kill Eric. She tried to systematically dismantle the emotional and financial security of his kids.
Just imagine the absolute relief Eric's family felt hearing those words. Katie and her husband are raising those boys now, and they finally have a permanent legal guarantee that Kouri cannot reach them.
That boundary is everything. It's what lets the family finally shift out of survival mode and start the really slow process of healing.
It's just incredible. I mean, think about the journey we've gone on in this deep dive. From a 9-year-old boy waking up terrified in his own bed, to a father choosing to endure a nightmare marriage just to protect his kids.
And then ending with the surreal theater of a convicted killer faking tears, rolling her eyes, and talking about the shades of gray in life.
All while refusing to accept a single ounce of accountability. It really makes you rethink everything you see online.
It does. And I think if there's one final provocative thought to mull over today, it's the unsettling nature of the disguises people wear.
Yeah, the masks.
Exactly. The most destructive forces in our society. They rarely look like monsters. They don't hide in the shadows. They look like real estate flippers. They look like Little League moms organizing snacks.
Or smiling influencers writing children's books about grief.
Right. It forces you to question how a human mind can so thoroughly turn off its empathy while perfectly mimicking the language of unconditional love for the cameras.
It really gives you chills. Well, that wraps up our look into this incredible story. You've been listening to Starscope Report, where we uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture.
Thanks for tuning in with us today.
Stay safe out there, Stay curious, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining. Because sometimes the darkest mysteries are hiding right in plain sight.